Hi, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Spilling the Tea on GovCon. I'm Teresa Moon, Director of Market Strategy for Preparedness. We're the preeminent partnership for government contractors, providing holistic support that includes a line of credit to fund your growth. The purpose of this podcast is to assist small businesses with success in the federal marketplace by introducing them to industry experts and resources that they may not otherwise know about. Today, we welcome Leneé Lyte, Principal and Government Contracts Practice Lead at Withum. Withum is an advisory and accounting firm, and she is based out of the Washington, D.C. area. And we are very proud to partner with her and the rest of her team. Leneé and I met several years ago at the National 8A Small Business Conference, and we've been working together ever since. With all that's happening today in the GovCon industry, we're excited to bring her expertise to our listenership. So, welcome to the show, Leneé.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. I know it's a busy time of year, period, for everyone. And with the holidays behind us and in front of us and all the good stuff that's going on in our industry right now, we were excited to bring you on to talk to everyone about some of the ways they can traverse through the landscape as we know it today. But before we start doing that, if you wouldn't mind getting a little bit deeper and telling us more about yourself, your experience in government contracting, your work within your firm, and then shed some light on the services you all provide to government contractors.
Sure. So I am a CPA and I have over 20 years of experience within the accounting field. And I've worked with so many different industries. I've worked in manufacturing, I've worked with life sciences, construction, professional services like architect engineering firms and law firms and then I landed in the government contracting space. I've been in the government contracting space now for I'd say a little over 10 years. I started out as a compliance analyst. Somehow I fell in love with FAR and DFARS and regulations, which is kind of strange, right? To enjoy that side of the business. I've been in compliance ever since. I help basically with navigating the contract lifecycle from pricing a proposal, negotiating a contract, meeting deliverables on the contract, as well as contract closeout. So anything related to accounting and financial compliance is my expertise. And at Withum, we do some of everything. We are a top 20 national CPA firm. So we provide the traditional audit, tax, and accounting work, but then we also have a robust advisory practice where we're providing technology solutions such as AI capabilities, process automation, ERP implementations. We have a risk management team that helps with, corporate governance. And then my team under GovCon Advisory, we sit under the advisory umbrella as well, where we're helping again with the compliance. We're doing things such as accounting systems certifications and 1408 assessments and pricing proposals, incur cost submissions. So, we offer some of everything for government contractors.
Mhm.
Government contractors, you're still commercial businesses in various industries. And so across Witham, we have industry specialists that work with many different types of commercial businesses. And then, couple that in with my team's government contracting expertise, we're able to support many businesses and different industries throughout the business life cycle.
Well, I hope everyone was listening because, as we talk about often in this industry, you cannot go this alone. And so, having a partner like Witham on your side to do all of the things that Leneé just discussed is super important. So, I want you to pay close attention to some of the tips that she's going to be giving you throughout this program. But I also want you to be inclined to reach out to her as well. Their team has been wonderful, a wonderful resource to the Parabolas team, but also to Parabolas clients and also to those of you who have, heard about them through a lot of their work in the government contracting industry. They're involved in a lot of organizations doing a lot of great things to support small and mid-sized businesses. So be sure and reach out to them because I think not only what you will hear today, but from what the organization as a whole can supply to your business is invaluable, especially now when so many things are changing. And you were probably one of maybe three people we've had on the podcast in the past that has talked specifically about their love of learning and love of understanding the FAR and how it applies to your occupation. And so I find that very fascinating, given the fact of the robust nature of it alone, let alone the environment that we're in right now with things changing up. And so you definitely want to align yourself with a partner that tells you that this is a passion of theirs. So I bet outside of the things that you learned today, the changes that are happening with the FAR right now is something that Leneé is personally tracking and how that applies to the clients that she's helping. So if for that reason alone you reach out, I recommend it highly. But I think, today's topic is essentially surviving post government shutdown. We have had so many listeners reaching out to us for guidance and insight relating to being better prepared and overcoming the challenges that they faced with our longest shutdown in history. And so I want to jump right in because I think that this, while it is relevant, it is super important because this probably will not be the last time, may not even be the last time in very recent times for us that we see something this impactful in terms of a shutdown affecting our industry itself. But there have been some lessons learned and there have been some takeaways that people might not know without being told. And so I want to get into some of those things with you. So, as we're moving back into it, what were some of the biggest issues that you helped your clients with during the shutdown?
Yeah, during the shutdown, the most significant issues clients faced and sought guidance on included clarifying contractor obligations. Many clients were uncertain about their contractual obligations to the government during the shutdown. The most frequent questions revolved around whether they were required to continue performing on the contract, especially when funding was suspended or government personnel were unavailable for oversight. This uncertainty created operational and legal risks that needed immediate clarification.
Mhm.
Managing workforce and costs. Clients struggle with decisions about retaining, furloughing, or reassigning employees whose work was directly impacted by the shutdown. Balancing compliance with labor laws, contract terms, and financial constraints was a recurring challenge. Cash flow and invoicing concerns. With delayed payments and halted work, clients faced cash flow disruptions. They needed strategies to manage financial obligations and maintain business continuity. Communication with government points of contact. The shutdown often meant that government contracting officers or technical representatives weren't available,
Mhm.
making it difficult for contractors to get timely answers or approvals. And documenting impacts for future claims. Clients needed guidance on how to properly document work stoppages, additional costs, and delays to support potential equitable adjustment claims or requests for schedule extensions once the shutdown ended.
Mhm. Yeah, it's amazing. All of those things are touch points that, we were tracking pretty closely as well with our own clients. And I think for a business that hasn't been in business since the last shutdown, which wasn't, it was 2018, they might not have known any of what they were heading into. They were sitting ducks, if you will. And so, these are things to keep in mind and make a checklist of, just like, I mean, I'm a Floridian, so just like we do during hurricane season, right? We have a checklist of things. Something comes up on you quick. These are the things that you have to have in place. And some of those topics that you were bringing up are should be on that checklist. And they should be things that you prepare for just like you do. And any, catastrophic preparation, you need to prepare for it all year long and not just the day before it hits. Because there are indicators that this is something that could become more of a trend. It was utilized in a strategic way this time. And so, what's not to say that it won't happen again? And so, some of the items that Leneé just listed out are things that are not, if it happens to you, it's a when it happens to you. And so being able to have a checklist of things that you have to be aware of and be in front of and having hard conversations. We had a lot of clients that had a lot of difficulty. They needed a lot of pep talking to really be able to, speak to the powers that be so that they were setting themselves up for success whenever things open back up. And so I think all of those are really great, things to point out that knowing what to plan for ahead of it is really key. And since we know this could be something that we see again, best to have that kind of charted out for yourself so you don't get caught, second time around in the same spot you were this time. So I think that was all great points to make. From that list, though, what are some of the lessons that were learned from those issues? We're talking about guiding your clients in terms of, being prepped to talk to vendors, being prepped to downsize if necessary. How were you guys navigating it in terms of you saw these issues that your clients were having and these were the lessons that they learned from it? What did you see most prevalent during that?
I think the most prevalent was knowing your contract, right? You know your contract, read your contract, understand the contract, and understand what your obligations are under the contract. And I found that a lot of clients did not fully understand, what was their obligation to continue to perform, whether or not, they were critical, right? There's certain contracts where even though the government shut down, you are critical and you are accepted, and therefore you still have to continue work. And what does certain clauses mean in the contract? I know, like, one of the biggest clauses that you could think of, or that I thought of when, the government shut down, is the availability of funds, right?
Mhm,
Availability of funds says if there aren't funds available that are, funded on this contract, then the government is not obligated to pay you for work performed during that period. And
mhm,
so understanding that is key, whether or not, you know, you're going to be operating at risk. Being able to communicate and talk with your contracting officers of whether or not there will be exceptions made. We did see that there was a class deviation that was issued under DFARS that basically was an IOU from the government that said, okay, contractors that are pending FY 2026 funding, we will pay you when the funding is available, and you will be entitled to interest on those invoices. And so it was important that, if you had a modification coming out or a new contract being issued, that clause was put into your contract so that you know that you had that IOU.
mhm.
And so, it's very important that you understand the contract, understand your obligations to perform, being aware of the changes that are occurring. There's a lot of changes that are occurring with regulations, and how do those changes impact your current contracts and future contracts?
It's
Yeah.
those are great points. I mean, it's so important. I mean, and we talk about it like it's so simple, but when there is a monkey wrench that gets thrown into the wheel in the process and modifications occur as a result of that, and you're being given an IOU, I mean, what other environment on the planet does that ever happen? Especially businesses that were functioning in the commercial realm and then moving into government contracts. They're like, what? Like, you go out of business otherwise if something like this is going on. And so it's just crazy the things that people have learned. I mean, me as well, with just watching and learning from the navigational tips that we've been providing to people. It's just mind boggling the things
Mhm.
that businesses are expected to know. And it's like, you either figure it out or like your team, you have someone to help you figure it out. And then you reset your goals based off of what the reality of things are in front of you. And it's
Right.
it's crazy to me,
And,
that
honestly, with an IOU, it's like, well, what do you do with that? I can't pay my people with
right.
IOUs, right? And
Yeah.
that's like one of the main things in business: pay your people, pay your suppliers.
Yep.
And, I think the shutdown allowed us to, talk to our clients about what is good business. Whether you're a
Mhm.
government contractor or not, there are just certain things that you need to have in place in order
Mhm.
to ensure continuity of your business.
Mhm.
And, one of the rules of, when it comes to saving and investing, and I remember, one of the rules of thumb was like pay yourself first. But that
Mhm.
works for a business too, right? You're
Yep.
an entity. You need to pay the business first, meaning
Mhm.
what are you putting aside to as your reserves to cover you during times like this? Each
Mhm.
business needs reserves, right?
Yep.
And I say that because not only you have the risk of a government shutdown, what if your main customer decides, okay, now I'm switching to your competitor? What do you do?
Yep. Yep.
Right? So it's just good business to have, you know, good cash flow planning and understanding what you need to meet your obligations and how much of a runway do you have, right? So if the
Mhm.
government's not paying on your invoices, how much reserves do you have in order to maintain your current workforce and
Mhm.
also to still meet other obligations, right? You may have
Mhm.
debt obligations that you have to meet as far as loans or lines of credit. How do you continue to sustain?
Yeah.
And you have to have a business continuity plan, and then you also have to have cash flow planning, and you
Mhm.
have to have some reserves.
Yep. Amen. I mean, these are things I had my colleague Evan Henris on last month while we were in the shutdown, and he said exactly the same thing. And I think this is a great segue into the next question. And you've already provided at least two of them right there. You know, is managing your payments, of course, and having that reserve set up. And so that's really why I wanted to have you on post shutdown because a lot of the things that we learned during the shutdown was that people weren't prepared in terms of cash flow. They weren't prepared of having the reserve in place to pay even one payroll cycle, let alone several. I mean, when we're getting into the 47 to 50 day range of a government shutdown and nothing's coming in and your IOU, while it is good, so to speak, in terms of what you think what the definition of good is, it doesn't say that it's going to be in your bank account the day that the government opens back up. I mean, we're all seeing that right
Exactly.
now. There's still a delay in things coming in. And so, you know, I think you provided two great of the three that I was asking for already is that making sure that there is some type of reserve in place, that you're putting stuff aside for the just in case, because there always is a just in case, whether it is a recompete that goes bad and goes to your competitor, or the funding of a project gets pulled and the contract gets terminated. There's always something in our environment that really begs itself to the fact that the reserve needs to be in place and not just for a government shutdown. But then also, like you said, the cash flow planning is also super important. And outside of that reserve, it is, who needs to be paid during it and what are essential items that have to be paid, getting in touch with your suppliers and working things out. That all requires, you know, vulnerable and touchy conversations that sometimes an ego driven business owner might not love the fact that they have to call. But if you've got relationships, just being a human, people understand. If you've done
Right.
business with someone, with a supplier for 10 years and they know about what industry you're in, they're not like blinded by the fact that there's a government shutdown and that
Exactly.
you didn't cause it. And so, do you have maybe one or two other tips in terms of that approach as well that you were sharing with people during that time?
One of the tips that I shared was banking relationships. I
Mhm.
think it's very important to have a strong banking relationship because in these times, you're going to need your banker. And your banker is actually going to help you with
Mhm.
that contingency plan. They can contribute to developing that plan. I
Mhm.
know sometimes as a small business, it's difficult to go to a traditional bank for funding, but there are alternative lenders that can help you as well. It's very important to have those relationships because that's going to help you sustain yourself. Knowing that you
Mhm.
have a line of credit that you can tap into, and you may be able to negotiate, different payment terms because of it's a
Right.
government shutdown. You're not the only one affected by it. There's others that are affected by it too.
Mhm.
And, the banks have to understand that this is an industry impact. And so there's some they will have to offer some sort of concessions to their client. Also, during this time, I also at go through all of your contracts. Go through all of your contracts, even the contracts that are funded. There were contracts that were still funded and they were still getting payments on them. But
Mhm.
what can happen that would affect these contracts? Go through all of your contracts and understand them. Understand, what's your obligation, understand, what happens in the shutdown, understand what happens if it needs to be terminated. Like
Mhm.
understand the contracts and document it, right? Have good documentation. Also, a shutdown impacts you in other ways where you may have to incur additional costs that you were not budgeting for, right? If you have to lay off employees and or terminate employees and provide severance to them, that may be something that you were not planning for.
Mhm.
Document it because that impact could be recoverable, right? And so making sure that you have meticulous documentation of every impact that this shutdown had on your business in order to try to recoup it.
Mhm. That's so important, and I think, that's important to note as well, that if this isn't something that you knew during the time of and you're just learning it now, these are the reasons why an advisory firm like Withum is where you need to be your next phone call this week. Because while you're probably thinking, "I can't believe this woman is suggesting that I go pay more money to something else right now while I'm struggling." You struggle less when you have a team of experts around you than you do when you're trying to tread water and expecting yourself to, win the race, and all the better you can do is keep your head above water. You have to surround yourself with the best possible team in order to achieve the goals that you have set out for yourself. And so, if you're hearing things right now that you weren't aware of before, it's probably time for you to start investing in having people, even from a fractional basis, come to you and provide you with some insights that you wouldn't know without them, because it could be the difference between keeping your doors of your business open and closing them down because you can't survive another, shutdown, or you can't survive another, whatever, a contract loss or anything like that, because these are just things you're not, you're fooling yourself by thinking that you are prepared to be able to handle it, and you just aren't. So if the writing's on the wall, I definitely am encouraging you to reach out to Leneé and her team. You know, when as we move towards the final parts of this conversation, I'm sure that there have been some positive impacts. What's the biggest impact that you've seen? And let's end it on a positive note in this respect, with your clients moving back into business as usual. I know it's been a slow ramp. We've told our internal teams to anticipate, really not even until the first of the year, given the holidays and the way things usually work up in the DMV during holiday times. But as we're moving back into business as usual, which we can expect for after the first of the year, what's been some of the biggest impact that you've seen with your clients?
I think the biggest impact I've seen is being more proactive. I think that this shutdown definitely opened a lot of business owners' eyes where it can happen again, right?
Mhm.
The CR that was put in place, it extends to January 30th. And so what happens when we get to January 30th, right? We don't know. We're just sitting and waiting, right? We're spectators in this sport. So
Unfortunately, yes.
and so, what are you gonna do differently, right? And so I think that a lot of our small business owners are taking this as a lesson learned, and they're putting, measures in place so that they can sustain another shutdown or they can sustain another event that can impact business continuity.
Mhm,
They're working on their business resiliency plans. They're putting together, more policies and procedures in their employee handbook. There's some as a small business, a lot of times you don't have it documented that you will offer severance. And that's actually an allowable cost, right? Providing
mhm,
severance to your employees in order to attract qualified candidates. That can be important to a qualified candidate that if something should happen to this contract and I'm laid off, that there may be some sort of severance. And
mhm,
so that is an allowable cost that can be factored into your rate.
mhm.
And so I've seen a lot of clients that are now offering severance packages to their employees. They are building better relationships with their banking providers. That,
Mhm.
I've worked with small businesses where they thought all debt is bad, right?
Yeah.
I can't have debt. And now they're seeing the importance that, okay, I need to have something as a just in case. It's my
Mhm,
emergency fund, right?
mhm,
It's my money under the mattress. So
mhm.
I'm going out to get a line of credit in order to have something to tap into to, sustain me for a couple of months. We also are seeing now where clients are actually looking for the training on FAR, right? We need to know
Yeah.
more about FAR. I can't just sign these contracts and think, okay, this is my steady Eddie and I'm going to keep getting paid, throughout the life of this contract. And things happen,
Yeah.
right? Things happen. You see administration changes, budget concerns happen. And then, as we saw at the beginning of the new administration, just contracts that are terminated for convenience. And yeah, the
Mhm.
government can terminate contracts for convenience. And I think that was also something, a lesson learned at that time as well. Like, really, that can really happen. And it's actually documented in your contract. And a lot of individuals did not realize that. So I
Yep.
think it's just understanding that working in the federal marketplace, it is it's a volatile
Yep.
marketplace because there's so many changes going on each and every day, and it's a highly regulated market as well. And so documentation is key in highly regulated market, and understanding how to document, what to document, the language needed is also important. And so I
Mhm.
do see like a lot of clients now that are asking for that help with
Yep.
documenting and communicating with their contracts, their contracting officers.
That's great insight there. And I see in our future having you come back with potentially one of our, legal partners to come in and talk about the FAR changes. And I'll be a part of the discussion just to make sure people like me aren't zoning out when they need to be tuning in. So I'll have some handy dandy dad jokes to tell during it because that's about as helpful as I'll be in that situation. Because I'll be learning as well. So if I can do it, they can do it. But I think that's definitely something in the very near future that we should partner on and bring to the community because it's so valuable and so necessary. And so stay tuned. Preview of coming attractions, right?
Right.
Before I let you go, though, I'm super excited because we're going to see each other in a few weeks. And, every year I look forward to the National Aid Association's Small Business Conference. And this year we're switching it up. We're moving from New Orleans to Nashville. So it's nice to have a little change of
Yes, I'm
scenery.
so excited
Um,
for Nashville.
as we know, I mean, you guys coming from the DMV, you're good, in certain locations. But given the fact that this is in January, I'm always partial to the fact of why aren't we doing everything in the winter time in Florida? However, Nashville's not a bad place to land. So we're going to be there in the end of last week of January together. And we're going to be co-sponsoring an event. It's going to be Withum and Parabolis and our co-partners at Polero Mazza as well that are going to be joining us to put on a really special event. Your team's spearheading it for us. And so if you want to share some information about that, we're excited to be able to host and co-host with everyone and have everyone come out and see us.
Yes, I'm excited. So we will be sponsoring an event for GovCons to get together and have a venue where they can continue to have conversations, meet potential teaming partners, learn from each other, share experiences. The most important part of the event is again just community. It's all about community and building your network. So, look out for that. More information will be coming out soon. The location, I can't share the location yet, but it will probably be the 2nd day. We usually do it on the
Yeah.
2nd day
Yep.
of the conference, and, it'll be a convenient location to get to,
Yeah.
and so I'm excited. So come, ready to meet new people and share, that this is the way that we learn. We learn from each other. It helps small businesses grow.
Absolutely. And it doesn't hurt that we have a good time doing it too.
Exactly.
Well, listen, I am so very excited to partner with you in all things. This upcoming event is just the icing on the cake. But I do look forward to having you back again soon to dig deeper into some of those topics we were just talking about. I know those are near and dear to you. And because of that, your passion will come out in it, and people need to come and tune in for that. So we'll be doing a redo of this, not even a redo, a second chapter of this, where we'll talk about some of those far insights that Leneé would be a great expert to help us on. So stay tuned for that. But thank you so much for joining us today, Leneé. I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Awesome. And thank you all for joining us. As always, we pride ourselves on sharing the most insightful and exciting people and information to help you better navigate your GovCon journey. If you like what you heard today, you can see all of our past podcasts which are archived on our Parabolas YouTube channel. Stay tuned for all of our future guests in the coming months as we help you grow to great heights in the year ahead. I'm Teresa Moon, and this is Spilling the Tea on GovCon. Have a great day, my friends.